Can we really trust the Bible? This is a question many Christians struggle with, and many non-Christians answer with a big fat no. Questions about the Bible have been brought up in people's minds through special TV programs like National Geographic and the Discovery Channel. They often have specials on Jesus and the Bible and the resurrection around the time of Easter. More questions were brought up by Dan Brown's book, The Da Vinci Code. Even though it was a fiction book, many of the questions brought up about the Bible and how it was compiled chipped away at many people's faith because of the Da Vinci Code book. More questions have come about as people have thought that the Bible is out of date. It's out of touch with reality. As LGBTQ has grown, as acceptance of sex outside of marriage, as more and more things go against God's word, the more people feel like the Bible is out of touch. So questions come up with the validity of the Bible. So where does this leave us? Is the Bible trustworthy? Was it manipulated by power-hungry church leaders as it was put together? Is it just out of date and out of touch with our culture today, and should we just move on? Let's look at that first question. Is the Bible trustworthy? To start with, I want to focus on some archaeological finds that have proven the historicity of the Bible, proven that the Bible is a historical book. Many people overlook the thousands and thousands of archaeological discoveries over the past century that have verified the Bible over and over and over again. There has never been an archaeological find that has disagreed with something from the Bible. The first one I want to bring up is King David. Until 1993, not a shred of evidence could be found outside the Bible that King David, the king of Israel, ever existed. And so it had become fashionable in some academic circles to dismiss the David stories as mere inventions. The critics' verdict was that David was nothing more than a figure of religious and political mythology. Well, their skepticism regarding David collapsed overnight in 1993, when a nearly 3,000-year-old inscription was unearthed in Israel, mentioning the House of David, the King of Israel. The writing dated to the 9th century BC, and this was only a century after David's reign. This was a tremendous discovery and helped to verify for the first time outside the Bible that David was an actual historical figure. In light of this discovery, Time magazine even said, "The skeptics' claim that King David never existed is now very hard to defend." Another example of historical evidence for the Bible is Pontius Pilate. The New Testament tells us that Pontius Pilate was the Roman governor of Judea at the time of Jesus, who oversaw Jesus' trial and then sentenced him to death by crucifixion. This can be found in Matthew 27:2 and Luke 3, verse 1. So was Pilate a legendary figure? No. In 1961, a team of Italian archaeologists were digging in Caesarea on the shore of the beautiful Mediterranean Sea in Israel. While clearing away the sand and overgrowth from the jumbled ruins of a Roman theater, these archaeologists made an astounding find. They uncovered a limestone block that bore an inscription in Latin dating to the early part of the 1st century that mentioned Pontius Pilate, prefect or governor, another word for governor, of Judea. This inscription verifies that Pontius Pilate was an actual historical person, that he reigned in the very position ascribed to him by the Gospels, a prefect. He would have had the authority to condemn or pardon Jesus, just as the Gospel accounts report. Another example of historical evidence for the Bible is first century crucifixion. Some were not convinced the Roman Empire used crucifixion during the time of Jesus. But then a discovery helped to verify the reality of crucifixion in Israel in the first century. According to the Bible, Jesus' hands or wrists were nailed to the cross, John 20, verse 25. But at one time, critics said crucifixions with nails never took place in Israel in the first century. No evidence of any crucified victim had ever been uncovered in Israel. So skeptics and scholars dismissed the Gospel's accounts as either imagined or inaccurate. Well, critics of the Bible were shown to be wrong again in 1968. It was then that a crew of builders from the Israel Ministry of Housing were working in Jerusalem and accidentally discovered an ancient Jewish cemetery that contained the remains of several men who were killed during the Jewish revolt against Rome in approximately AD 70. One of the bone ossuaries contained the skeleton of a young man and an inscription with the man's name. What stunned the archaeologists the most, though, was how this man died. He was put to death by a crucifixion with nails. How was that determined? He still had an iron spike driven through his heel bone. The Romans typically removed the nails from their victims because iron was very expensive. But apparently this nail was too difficult to remove. The tip of the nail had been bent back toward the head, likely the result of hitting a knot in the wood. And so the soldiers left it there. And now we have solid archaeological evidence that the Romans did crucify people in Israel in the first century with nails, just as the Bible said. I would love for you to comment below. Have you heard of these archaeological evidences before? Say yes or no in the comments, and that would be awesome. If you like the video, please hit the like button and hit the subscribe button to hear more videos from me from Truth Be Told in the weeks ahead.